Hey guys, so I'm not here today, so I'm sending this video for you. There's a couple prerequisite skills or skills that I need you to have before attempting our lesson today. And first we're going to review f of x equals 5x minus 7. Well, what's f of 3? Okay, so I'm just reviewing that would mean that we would sub in, instead of x, we would put the parentheses with a 3 minus 7. Okay, and remember we have to bring f of 3 down. That's a critical part because the answer is only the answer when x is 3. So 5 times 3 is 15, and 15 minus 7 is 8. So f of 3 equals 8. The other thing that we have to remember how to do is multiply fractions. So don't forget that on your calculator you have that 2 and you have the A, B, C button and the 3, and then you can hit the times key and 6. Okay, so 2 ABC 3 times 6 would equal 4. And 5 ABC 6 times 12 would equal 10. And you can use the parenthesis keys on your calculator, or you can use the times key on your calculator. The calculator understands that parentheses and times key both mean multiply, so you can use either one. Alright, our learning target for today is I can graph a function using an input-output table. Okay, guys, this should look awfully familiar to you because really the only thing that's different this time is there's an f of x here instead of a y. But we did this. You might have picked up your homework assignment and looked at it and said, why is she giving this old homework assignment? We already did one that looks just like it. That's absolutely true. The difference is that there's an f of x out in front of it. So that's really the big difference here. So it's the notation that's different. So for tables with whole number coefficients, just like we did before, we're using 0, 1, and 2 for x values. 0, 1, and 2. So we're taking the 2x plus 1, putting it in the parenthesis in the top row of our table. 2 times 0 plus 1, 2 times 1 plus 1, and 2 times 2 plus 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And then we're going to go and graph that. Now remember, f of x is the same thing as y. So when we go to 0 and 1, okay, here's y. That's the same as f of x. 1 and 3, 2 and 5. Okay? And I'm kind of seeing that pattern of up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, so I'm going to continue it. Draw my line, arrows on both ends, and label f of x equals 2x plus 1. Okay, so looking at the next slide, 0, 1, and 2. Bring the expression down into that top row, and then just sub in. So negative 3 times 0, and then plus 2 is 2. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, plus 2 is negative 1. And negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Okay. So we've got 0 and 2, 1 and negative 1, 2 and negative 4, And I'm just following that pattern over 3, or down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. I'm noticing that pattern. So I'm putting more dots in there just to make my line go edge to edge. F of x equals negative 3x plus 2. Now, one thing that your homework is going to ask you to do is if a particular point is or is not a solution. So let's say this asked, is 10 negative 15 a solution? I'll just abbreviate, okay? So that's where we're going to extend our chart. We're going to put the 10 in this box, sub in the 10. Okay, negative 3 times, oops, I put 2 there, why? It should be a 10. Negative 3 times 10 would be negative 30, and negative 30 plus 2 would be negative 28. If you struggle with your adding, subtracting, multiply, divide, positives and negatives, please use a calculator. And no, negative 15 is what they were asking about. We got negative 28, so we would say 10 negative 28, got a little ahead of myself here, is not a solution. So make sure you're answering that on your homework. Okay, just like that. Add that row and compare the answer you get with the one they ask you about. Okay? Okay, for tables that have fraction coefficients, start with 0, because 0 is still the easiest thing you can choose, and numbers that are multiples of the denominator. So my denominator here is 2. So I'm going to start with 0, but then I'm going to count by 2, 0, 2, 4. And the reason is so that I always get whole numbers over on the f of x side. I won't get any decimals or fractions. So 1/2 times 0 plus 1, 1/2 times 2 plus 1, 1/2 times 4 plus 1. So half of nothing is still nothing. Plus 1 is 1. Half of 2, well, half of 2 is 1. Plus 1 is 2. Half of 4 would be 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So over to our graph, 0 and 1, 2 and 2, 4 and 3. Now I'm noticing up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, so I'll continue that pattern so I can fill in and graph edge to edge. Arrows on each end and label. Okay. Last one, this also has a fraction in it. The denominator, again, is 3. So I'm going to start with 0, but then I'm going to count by 3's. So 2/3 x plus 1. So I'm going to take 2/3, multiply it by each value. And feel free to use your ABC button on your calculator. Okay. So 2/3 times 0, even if you can't multiply with fractions, anything times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 2/3 times 3 plus 1 is 3. And 2/3 times 6 plus 1 is 5. 0 and 1, 3 and 3, 6 and 5. Now, don't forget, okay, if you're struggling with doing the input-output tables, you always have slope and y-intercept to back you up. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, remember when we did this before, the plus 1 is where you start. So 1 would be my start, and you'll notice I get the same dot. The slope is positive, which means I go up 2 and 3 to the right. So if I start at that dot, I go up 2, 1, 2, 3 to the right, up 2, 1, 2, 3 to the right. I get the exact same dots as I would using an input-output table. So that's your backup method. Now, of course, you still need to fill in the input-output tables for full credit on your homework, but if slope and y-intercept help you graph the line correctly, especially if you're the type of student that you can get this table correct, no problem, but you reverse your coordinates and don't always graph correctly, then maybe filling in the table, fine, done, I got that, but maybe you need to use the slope and the y-intercept to help you graph. Okay, I started on 1, I go up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3, and that'll help you get your coordinates correct so that you get 6, 5 instead of 5, 6. And lastly, don't forget to label. Okay, spend the rest of class working on your homework, and I'll see you next time.